Alright, so I just got out of theaters and I just finished up watching The Home, which is part of AMC's Thrills and Chills movies, which is basically a mystery horror movie that you don't know what it is. It could be coming up soon, later, so on, as far as I know. And I kind of want to get my review out there because I went to the theater not expecting anything, and then the very first thing I saw was Pete Davidson on the screen, and I was like, fuck. I no disrespect, I'm not a big Pete Davidson guy. I don't think he's terrible, no, by any means. I think there's a time and place for him, if anything, right? There's a time and place for him, and I think that that's comedy. So when I saw him in a horror movie, I didn't think it fit. And if I'm being honest with you, there was a lot of moments where I'm like, this movie would be held up way more because I actually think that there's some really good things in this movie if Pete Davidson wasn't in this film. But like I said, he's tremendously flat with his delivery in like a lot of ways in this movie. That being said, it shocked me because I would say first half of the movie I was like, okay, I'm not going to go into too much spoiler territory just in case you want to see it, which you might. But there was a certain point, first part of the movie, where I was like, okay, you know what, I can slowly get into this. I think it's going to be like a slow thing where it's going to deal with like crazy old people. That's pretty much the synopsis of it. We have Pete Davidson who's trying to get better in his life. He's made a lot of mistakes and he's doing community service at this old retirement home, and I won't go any deeper than that. But, sheesh. I'm not gonna lie, man. The next two halves of this movie were so monotonous and so slow and so run-of-the-mill, and there were so many points where Pete Davidson would have a line delivery, right, and you would think that it would be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's scary, that's sketchy, but coming through his mouth, it almost like came off with like a comedic effect, and that's the vibe that I got. I was like, it comes off more funny than it does come off as like, oh, this is a serious problem. And what they were relaying in, like, I would say like the second and third half of the movie was it was a serious problem, but with Pete Davidson it was just hard to take seriously. That being said, minor spoilers, there is a massive plot twist like the last maybe 25 minutes of this movie, and that absolutely saved the film for me, because otherwise I was just not feeling it. I was like, this isn't quite for me. I didn't really quite know how to feel. And then this plot twist happened, and it's like I woke from the dead. It's like I was out of my sleep state, and I was just like, I was back into it. And holy crap, the last 25 minutes of this movie are worth the price of admission, in my opinion. The last 25 minutes of this movie were so good. If you can somehow get past the Peter Davison just toned, like, just very like monotone sort of thing, and the other cast of crew just kind of monotone, I've been kind of struggling with it because like there's some stuff in here where I'm like, man, would I suffer through some of the first parts of this movie again? And it's, part of me says no, right? But then legit, the last 20 minutes of this movie are so good and so satisfying, seeing what happens to everybody in this film and seeing the outcome. It did a twist that I didn't expect, and it kind of had like two twists in this movie. It had one in the middle of it, which I was like, okay, and then it had another one, I was like, holy shit, which blew me out of the fucking water. It absolutely did. And just because the earlier half of this movie was so just bogged down for me, I can't give it anything crazier than maybe, I don't know. I see people doing 5-star reviews of movies and stuff like that, and I've never been a big fan of like 5-star reviews, so I'm going to do 10 stars. That being said, this movie right here does not get 10 stars because the first, second, and third half of this film were just so monotonous, slow, and you have to deal with Pete Davidson's acting, which he's trying to act terrified and like scared and take the situation seriously, when through his lens it just doesn't convey that way. uh so for me, I'm going to give the movie I'm going to be a little bit generous just because of how much I like the last part. I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's a very middle of the road horror movie for the most part, you know, and then you get to the very end and you're like, that's good. You just gotta say that is good, and that's exactly what I thought. So I mean, hey, go into it with open expectations. I mean, I had to because it was a mystery film. But yeah, you go into it with open expectations. You might find something that you really like, especially with that ending. If you plan on seeing this movie, or if you want to see this movie, please let me know. I had a pretty good time with it. And with that being said, stay tuned for another Reaper review. Thank you.